Hey guys, so this technology only allows me to record for 15 minutes. So after that 15 minutes is up, I have to record again. So we're going to do this review in two parts. So finishing up with the XYZ affair, go ahead and flip over to those three document question activities we did in class together. We taped them or pasted them into our notebooks with the article on one side and the questions on the other. We're going to look at the XYZ affair and look at the questions whenever you get there on that side. Go ahead and circle questions 1, 2, 3, and 6. Again, that's 1, 2, 3, and 6. I'm actually going to take these questions from these articles or this in-class activity and put them on the test verbatim. So numbers 1, 2, 3, and 6 will be on the test as short answers. So make sure that you study them and know the answers. And if you don't know the answers, you can look over in the corresponding article and you will find the answers. So once again, that's 1, 2, 3, and 6. Next, we're going to flip over to the Alien and Sedition Acts. The only thing that I want you to know from the Alien and Sedition Act questions are questions 4 and 5. Define alien and define sedition. Of course, we've gone over those two terms under the slide terms to know in the previous review session that we just did. And that's what I want you to know from the Alien and Sedition Acts questions. However, I'm going to explain the Alien and Sedition Act so you can better understand the final document we covered called the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions. So if you want, you can go ahead and flip over to the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, and we can kind of go through that. So we're going to reverse a little bit back to the XYZ affair. And after that happened, John Adams became very popular with the Federalist voice of America. So remember that we had the Federalist and the Democratic Republicans. Those are the two parties that ruled America during this time. And so once they heard that John Adams didn't back down from, giving the French money and said, you know what, we'll fight you if it comes to it, but we're not going to give you any money. That's just ridiculous. So in the newspapers, in the Federalist newspapers, he was very popular. However, in the Democratic Republican newspapers, he was not so popular. And they insulted him by saying, "You are the tyrant of the blasted tyrant of America." So that's a very, very strong phrase to say against someone. And so the Democratic Republicans were very angry with him. And John Adams didn't take this very lightly. He was very offended, and he decided to pass the Sedition Act. And like we learned, sedition means anything harmful or false about the government. So it's publishing or saying anything that is harmful or false about the government. And you're probably thinking, we do this all the time. Absolutely. If you get on Twitter, you're going to see how many people say a lot of more terrible things than the blasted tyrant of America to Trump, right? So he gets cussed at completely, slammed up and down about who he is, his family, what he does, anything. And so being called the blasted tyrant of America would probably be a better insult than what most people say on Twitter. So John Adams passes this act. He said, okay, you can't say anything about harmful or false about the government, and if you do, I will shut down your paper. Well, he ends up shutting down 25 Democratic Republican newspapers. To put this in perspective, it's like the president shutting down CNN or MSNBC, any news station or newspaper that speaks out against President Trump or his government. Okay? It sounds all great. The only problem is our First Amendment rights. We have the freedom of speech and the freedom of the press, and you can't take that away. That's the law of our land. The 10 Amendments, the Bill of Rights that we have as American citizens are listed in the law of the land. That's very incredible. So they cannot take away those rights. And so moving on to the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, the Democratic Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, were furious. They said, this is not right. Yeah, people are not gonna, they understand that, we're getting insulted on our side, you're getting insulted, but you can't take away our freedom of speech. We just fought a war over that. We just wanted independence from a king who believed in that kind of way. And so you cannot take away our freedom of speech and freedom of the press. We should be able to print, newspapers. And if they speak out against you, maybe it's for a good reason. And that's our opinion. We have the freedom to do so. And so Jefferson and Madison said, how can we stop this law? They said, let's use states' rights. So in our government, we have this cool thing called states' rights. And because our government is balanced, the states have certain powers that the federal or national government cannot violate, which is a great thing. So they said, you know what? We're going to try to use states' rights to combat this law that you've passed because it's just unconstitutional. And we have the right to say no to certain laws since we are the states and we have powers too. And but basically this theory of states' rights could technically undermine the federal government by allowing states to have more power than the national government. So states could possibly have more power, and what we're gonna see that when the Civil War happens and the South uses states' rights to disconnect from the United States, to secede from the United States using states' rights. They said, you know what? We have the power to say no to your laws, and in fact, the Constitution says nothing about us forming our own country and starting a civil war to fight for, our own nation. And they'll use that. But yeah, states' rights are very powerful and can be very, very powerful. But it does create balance within our government. Anyways, what you need to know, or what you need to study for the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions is I want you to look at numbers 1, 2, 3, and 6. Okay, so questions 1, 2, 3, and 6 over the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, the article and questions that correspond. I will be putting 1, 2, 3, and 6 on the test. So make sure you study 1, 2, 3, and 6 for the test. And I'll quickly go over the answers and then I'll move on. We can finish up. So what does it mean to nullify? Of course, it's going to be a multiple choice question. It means to cancel. We've gone over that on the terms to know section of this review slide. 2, explain the theory of states' rights. States have the rights the federal government cannot violate. That's the theory of states' rights. How might the theory of states' rights undermine the federal government? The state government could possibly have more power than the federal government, which could be a problem, I guess. And then number 6, what did both acts declare? So what did the Kentucky and Virginia resolution both declare about the Alien Sedition Acts? That they were unconstitutional because they violated the First Amendment right. So the freedom of speech and the freedom of press. So that's what both acts declared, and they presented that to Adams. So that is basically the test. I do want to quickly go over your discussion questions. You have 3 paragraph discussion questions. So we have, what are some ways George Washington's leadership helped bring stability to a young nation? Give examples. How effective was John Adams addressing the challenges of his presidency? Give examples. Why do you think Washington wanted to stay neutral when France and Britain went to war? So for each of these questions, you'll write 1 paragraph. I want you to follow the hamburger style paragraph with the topic sentence, 3 detailed sentences about the topic, and a conclusion sentence. And I really want you to be able to be proficient in this so you can become a better writer. And I have to say that I'm very impressed with what you guys have done so far. Looking over all your paragraphs from this week, I'm very impressed. So keep it up, but there's still a lot of room for improvement, and that's why I'm here. I want you guys to be really good writers and help you understand how writing works and get you to a point where you can be efficient at writing and not so much resistant to writing. So we've kind of already gone over how George Washington's leadership helped bring stability to a young nation. So you can pick out 3 examples of George Washington's leadership, something that he did during the war, during his presidency, something that you can shed light to Washington's how that helped him stabilize a young nation. And so you can talk about maybe he was a leader in the war that gave him experience. He taught the Americans to never give up and to push through adversity. He gave us a lot of leadership qualities that you can give examples to in that paragraph. Also, number 2, how effective was John Adams addressing the challenges of his presidency? Give examples. So what you could do is, this is more of an opinionated paragraph, so you can talk about, based on what we learned about the XYZ affair, the Alien and Sedition Acts, and the states' rights, you can make an argument of why, if you thought John Adams was effective or not effective at addressing his challenges. Did he fail or did he do good? And you can just give some examples and express your opinion in those 3 sentences and then conclude it. So that's pretty easy. And then, why do you think Washington wanted to stay neutral when France and Britain went to war? Once again, this is kind of an opinionated thing. So you can just talk about maybe why you think Washington wanted to stay neutral between the war between France and Britain. And I want to give you a quick little example of a good paragraph if you were to write number 3, just because we didn't really touch on it that much, and I want to make sure you have enough background information. So here's an example of a good paragraph for that previous question. So of course, this is broken down in an outline format, so I don't want you to write it like this, where the topic sentence dash, detail sentence 1 dash, conclusion dash. I want this to be cohesive and all blend together. This is just an example. So this is what I wrote down. During his presidency, Washington wanted to stay neutral in the war between the French and British. So as you can see, I related back to the question. I just rewrote the question in a different way. Washington wanted to stay neutral when France and Britain went to war. Okay, so you can turn that question into a sentence and make it your topic sentence. It's very easy. Then I gave, 1 to 3 sentences about why I thought he wanted to stay out of the war. So I put, Washington knew that war costs money and the new United States did not have the money for war. Okay, that's an easy first sentence. My second sentence was, the United States had just established a new government and trust with its citizens. And I kind of blended detail sentence 2 and 3 together. So after detail sentence 2, I gave more detail to that. I said the new country was fragile and could not risk the destruction that could happen if it engaged in a war overseas. And then I concluded it. In his wisdom, Washington stayed focused and led us out of a possible war with European powers. Boom, finished. So as you can see, I had a topic sentence, 3 detail sentences. I kind of blended 2 and 3 together. And then I concluded with, in his wisdom, Washington stayed focused and led us out of the possible war with the European powers. Or you could say, and this is, or you can say something like, this is why Washington wanted to stay neutral between the war, or in the war between the British and French, or vice versa. So you can do something like that. You can get creative, or you can say basic, as long as it makes sense and it concludes things. You can say, in conclusion, this is why Washington wanted to stay out of the war between the British and French. Okay, so any of those will work. Here's some paragraph pointers. Remember to indent. Okay, as you can see in this paragraph right here, it doesn't have like 9 indentions. It has 1 indention. One paragraph has 1 indention, not 5. Do not start off sentences with so. So this happened, and then so, no so's. Okay, they're unnecessary, and if you cross them out, the sentence still makes sense. Use capitalizations and punctuations, and read your paragraphs before you turn it in. If there's any other questions, feel free to email me. If not, I will see you Tuesday and Wednesday. Have a great weekend.